In this video, I will show you a solution I've built that enables me to chat with my CRM using ChatGPT and automate tasks such as summarizing my deals, extracting key insights, and writing emails. This solution has been built with a custom GPT, which is something you can build on the Plus Plan of ChatGPT. Let me show you how I set it up. All right, so what I'll do now is I'll give you a walkthrough of the GPT setup, explain how it works. And then if you want a more detailed breakdown, if you want me to do like a full tutorial on how to set it up step by step, just let me know in the comments below. If it gets enough interest, then I will do a more in-depth video. So I'm gonna go here to my GPTs. As I mentioned, you need to have a Plus plan in order for you to be able to create GPTs, not to use them. To use them, you can be on the free plan of ChatGPT, but if you want to create GPTs, you need a Plus plan. So here is my opportunity summarizer GPT. I'm going to click edit. And here is the configuration window. So a GPT can either be created by providing information on what you want to do and then let the AI create the configuration, or you can go directly to the configure tab here and fill out these fields. So this is what I did. I filled out the name of the GPT, opportunity summarizer. This can be anything you want, it doesn't really matter. The description, so this is what it does. A GPT that summarizes the information of opportunity and helps you plan your next steps. So this is what appears right here. And then the instructions. Now this is the most important field here because this is what will train the GPT to do the tasks that you want. And it will also help it understand how to interact with the user. So I kept this quite simple, actually. I just created a list of tasks that I wanted to perform in order. Initially, I wanted to ask for the user to provide a Salesforce opportunity. So that's how in Salesforce specifically, because in this example, I've used Salesforce of my CRM. Opportunities are identified by an ID, right? So this right here is an example of an opportunity or a deal, you can think of it. And in the URL, there is a unique opportunity ID. That's the identifier, right? So this is how I want to identify the Salesforce opportunities. Or I should say that's how the Salesforce opportunities are identified. And I want the user to provide that ID, right? So the GPT knows which opportunity to retrieve the data of and which data to summarize. Now, once it has the Salesforce opportunity ID, the next step is to make an API call to Salesforce to retrieve the opportunity data using the action get Salesforce opportunity ID. And this is where GPTs shine. This is the power of GPTs. They're able to connect to third-party apps, third-party resources, and retrieve data from them or perform actions. This is something that you're not able to do within ChatGPT itself. Within GPTs, though, you're able to connect to third-party applications. So what I'm telling it here is that using the opportunity ID that you got, I want you to make an API call to Salesforce to retrieve the data of that opportunity, right? So it will go to Salesforce and it will extract all this information that is available on the opportunity record and then bring it into the context of the ChatGPT window, right? And the way that the GPT is able to do that is using what we call actions. So down here on the configuration, there's a section called actions. And if I hover over it, you can see that it says APIs this GPT can use, right? So here I'm basically giving it information about what API calls it can make in order to retrieve necessary information. And what's really interesting here is that it will do this intelligently, right? It will figure out when is the right time to perform an API call in order to retrieve information. For example, here, I'm saying that once you have that opportunity ID, do the API call. But I could just start a chat with it, and then after a while, I'll give you an example later on. Like you can instruct it to get you some information, and it will figure out by itself that it needs to make an API call. That's the agentic way of working, where it's able to intelligently decide what to do. Anyway, so actions is where the API calls are defined. And if I go here, currently I have one action, which basically allows the GPT to retrieve information about a Salesforce opportunity. Now, the way that you define the API call is using this thing called a schema. So a schema is essentially like a list of instructions that the GPT can follow in order to successfully perform an API request to get you the data that you need. And the schema is defined, like there are some example ones that you can start with here. For example, this weather JSON is the one I'm always using, which it's like an imaginary weather API that the GPT can make a request to in order to get the current weather of a specific location, of a specific city, right? And you can see that there are descriptions at each level of the API call, which help the GPT understand how it needs to configure the API call in order to retrieve the information. So I took this example. I always start with that sample, and I replace all the values in order to make an API request to the resource that I want. And in this case, the resource that I want is a Salesforce CRM. Now, I'm not directly making API calls to the Salesforce API. I think that should be possible. Like if you want to do a direct call to your CRM, I think that you should be able to figure that out, configure it to do that. In my case, I'm doing it a little more simple. I'm actually using make.com to connect to Salesforce. I'm using make.com as a middle layer. So if you're not familiar with Make, it's basically an integration / automation platform that allows you to easily connect to the APIs of thousands of different apps. So whatever CRM you're using, let's say you're using Pipedrive, there is a connection to that. If you want Salesforce, there is a connection. If you want HubSpot, there is a connection. If you want Agile, there is a connection. If you want whatever CRM you might be using, Zoho, there's so many of them here, and you can even connect to you can even make a custom API request and connect to pretty much any web service out there. It's a very powerful tool and makes the integration process very easy. So I chose to make this my little middle layer of connecting to Salesforce. So I created a scenario here. This is called a scenario, which gets triggered by a webhook. So I use the custom webhook module here to create a new endpoint, which my GPT can send a request to. And once a request arrives to that endpoint, it will then make a call to Salesforce to get the opportunity record, and it will then return back the data as a response to the request. So all the data captured from the opportunity record on Salesforce will be sent back as a response, and the GPT will be able to retrieve it and then add it to the context of the ChatGPT session. Now, the way that we know which opportunity to retrieve is using the opportunity ID, which is passed as a parameter to the webhook request. And you can see here in the schema that at the point where I define the path that I want to make an API request to, I explained that there is a parameter called opportunity ID that needs to be filled out with the ID of the opportunity, right? So this is how the GPT knows that the opportunity ID that the user provides during the conversation needs to be captured and then passed to this API request as a parameter in order to fetch the data of the correct opportunity, right? So that's how it works, right? We have the webhook right here. We have the parameter and then explanation of what that parameter needs to be filled with. Then we have, of course, we have the info section here, which explains what this action is used for. It's used to retrieve information about a deal from a Salesforce CRM. So this is how This is how the GPT will figure out that this is the correct action to use when it's time to get Salesforce opportunity data, right? It looks at the available actions. Obviously, in this case, there's just one action, but if there were multiple actions, it will look through all of them and see, okay, so this is an action which gets data from Salesforce CRM. There is a path called get Salesforce opportunity. This means this is most likely the API call I need to perform in order to get this data for my user, and then bring it into the context window of ChatGPT to be able to perform to do other things with it, such as summarize the data, generate emails with it, and so on and so on. So that's a high level overview of actions. Again, like if you're interested, if you want me to do a step-by-step tutorial on how to set this up and dive in deeper on how to define a schema, just let me know in the comments below. I will be very happy to do that. So going back, after we make the API call and we have the opportunity data in the context window here, the third task is to summarize the opportunity data, right? So this is where we start doing things with the actual data that we retrieved. So summarize the opportunity data. And then number 4, generate a list of actions that can help drive the deal forward. So that's the ultimate result, right? That's what we want to do. That's the valuable outcome that we're expecting from this interaction. We want to get a list of things we can do to move the deal forward. But obviously, that's just an example. You know, I could say that I want you to generate me the best follow-up email to help me move the deal forward, or I want you to come up with a list of things that I need to discuss with my prospect on the next call that I'm gonna have with them, or generate a quote for me, or do this or do that. Like you can have you can define as many tasks as you want here and make them as specific as you want. But the cool thing is that you don't really need to do that, because you can interact with that data in any way you want. Once the data is in ChatGPT, right? Once the opportunity data is in here, you can just ask it to do anything. And this is what I'm going to show you now. So we're going to click start here. Start is just like a conversation starter, like whatever, like a button. You can rename this to anything you want. Yeah, but that essentially will just replace. It will basically just add that as the first text in the chat. But anyway, whatever you add, it will always begin with the first prompt, which is asking you to enter the Salesforce opportunity ID, because that's the task I told it to do first. So I'm going to go to Salesforce again. I'm going to copy my opportunity ID. I'm going to bring it in here, paste. And now what you'll see is it starts talking to the connector. Now, it's asking me to basically tell it if it's okay to make an API call. I will just say it's always allowed, because I trust that resource. So now, as you can see, it has talked to make.com, right? It has performed an API call, and it has talked to make.com. It has retrieved the data of the opportunity, and it's now summarizing it for me, right? So exactly what I wanted it to do. Now, if we go through these steps here, you can see how the API call was performed, right? So it figured out that there is an operation called get Salesforce opportunity, which is within my action here, and it found out that it needs to pass a parameter, which is the opportunity ID. And since I provided the opportunity ID here, it understood that that's the one it needs to paste as the value to the parameter. Then it got the response back, which is all the data of the opportunity coming from Salesforce. And then with that data, it was then able to summarize the deal, right? And then here we have the recommended next steps. Now, let's move on. So recommend the next step is follow up on a proposal review. Perfect. Write me the email for the follow-up for the proposal review. Subject, follow up on proposal review. Hi, John. I hope you're doing well. I want to follow up on your proposal for Acme corporate website redesign and see if you had any initial thoughts or questions as we approach your internal review deadline on April 10. I'll be happy to address any concerns, provide additional details, etc. I understand that meeting the 6-week timeline ensures strong ROI justification and key factors evaluation. To support this, I'd love to walk you through these 3 things, right? So it's using information from the summary to write a good follow-up email. And I could say something like, make it shorter, right? Whatever you can do with ChatGPT, you're able to do in here with the only, with the big pro that you have, the big advantage that you have access to the opportunity data. You have good context to work with. And then, okay, let's say now, this is what I was talking about earlier now, when I said the GPT can figure out intelligently when it's time to do the API call. So if I say now something like, let's say I had a call with a prospect and now the Salesforce opportunity has been updated. Maybe there's new data in here. All I can do here, I don't need to start a new session or anything. I can just say, get me all the new info from the opportunity. You will see that it will figure out that it needs to make another API call, right? This is what we'd call like an agentic way of working. Like it figures out that I need to make another call to retrieve new Salesforce opportunity data, right? And you can see here that it didn't find, like it was even able to compare it with the old data and understand that there's no new updates to retrieve. So that's it, we're up to date. But let me actually try this. So let's say next steps here, send like invoice, let's say, save. I want to see if it manages to get that. Get me new info. Let's see if it figures out. Okay, stage proposal, amount, next step, send invoice. Okay, so it figured out that, and you even highlighted the new information. This is really cool. And then it even suggests, like, would you like me to draft an email for sending the invoice or confirming the next steps with John? Yes. So now it will draft the invoice email. So I hope you get the idea, right? This is really powerful, and we're only dealing with one action. What I'm thinking of doing in the future is introducing more actions, right? So an action for getting opportunity, then another action for getting, let's say, summarizing the content of a website. So if you're working with a new person, like a new prospect, and you don't have information about their business and you want to quickly prepare for a call that is coming up, you can just instruct your GPT to quickly look at the website and summarize the key pieces of information about that company. Or maybe another action that sends an email, right? So here we're generating emails. What if we kind of actually automate the sending of the emails based on an instruction that we write, like based on natural language, like, hey, okay, this email looks good, send it to John, right? Or maybe another action like generate a quote and send it out. You know, there's a lot of things we can automate with a GPT, with the actions of a GPT, and then tools like make.com, which allow us to easily integrate with many different apps. But I want your feedback. I want to know what's actually valuable for you. So please let me know in the comments below what you think about this and how you would imagine a GPT saving you a lot of time in your business, in your sales department. Please provide me as much information as possible so I can create the most valuable videos for you. With that said, I hope you found this useful, and I will see you on the next one.